We all knew that with this movie, Halloween would end, but was the end fitting? What's up, everyone? I am Wink.
And I am Skillz.
And this is Scream Cheese. Today we're gonna talk about Halloween Ends. Directed by David Gordon Green, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Andi Matichak, and Rohan Campbell. The saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode comes to a spine-chilling climax in this final installment of this trilogy. And before we get into the review, we'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel. We're doing reviews all the time, sometimes trailer reactions, and we'd love to see you around here again. All right, Skillz, you are the Halloween buff. This is your series. I want your initial thoughts.
Oh, man, where do you start? I did not hate this film. I loved Jamie Lee Curtis in this film. I thought this was the best version of her character out of all three films that we've gotten. Allyson, her granddaughter, who's played by Andi Matichak, I thought she was really good. And I thought Rohan Campbell was excellent. It was kind of different because we really didn't have a main character. We had kind of like three main characters that we followed and their stories all tied together. And I thought all that was great. So they went a completely different direction with this. And I didn't have a problem with that. For most of the film, I was actually enjoying and appreciating the fact that they did something different, because were we going to get another just Michael going through town killing people? So there was things that felt rushed. They were trying to introduce something completely new and do it within like 2 hours. So there was a love relationship between Allyson and a new character, which I really liked. It felt good. Like every moment of this film I actually enjoyed. So it wasn't boring, it wasn't bad, but it kind of felt like a weirdly rushed relationship. But that aside, there was a lot of things in this that I liked. I just felt like it didn't all come together in the end to work. I can point to a number of situations with Michael, with Laurie, with the new character, Corey, and the granddaughter, and I liked all of it. And I really thought it was cool that they tried to do something different. In the end, it was a mixed bag for me. Just for you guys that haven't seen it yet, this is going to be very divisive. This is a complete tone shift from the last two. And I almost felt myself in that place. And I feel like we've had this so often with the Halloween franchise where we say, on its own merit, this might be a really good film. But now you're plopping this into the center of a Halloween franchise. Yeah. And that's where it's going to get divisive. But I definitely want to hear your take, Wink.
I will tell you, I really enjoyed this movie. I will also tell you that I have some internal conflict about what I enjoyed and what I didn't enjoy. And it's all kind of tangled together in this movie. I felt that the tonal shift and the kind of shift in story was super strong. I was watching it going, man, I am so happy we're not doing the same thing over again. And I like what we're doing. And also I liked where it was going. And then when I thought I had a grasp of where it would lead, it was almost a disappointment that it didn't do what I was hoping it was going to do. If you just kind of let your brain go and just watch this movie, there's a lot to enjoy. But if you start after the fact thinking too hard about things kind of fall apart. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief that the story kind of requires. I don't love what Michael Myers has been up to for the past 4 years in our time shift. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm willing to just go with it for the fun of the film. Also, like the kind of ending to the movie is actually really satisfying to me. But also, it doesn't feel like it's presented with the grand nature it deserves. I've been inundated with Halloween for the past couple months. Like, I got teary-eyed, but I don't feel like the reverence was presented. Dude, you could go over the top with this epic ending. You really can, and I don't feel like it was exactly there. And then I just had a couple small problems with things that I would have liked otherwise. I agree with you. I think Jamie Lee Curtis's character was the best that it's been. Also, dude, you probably could have given me an extra like 20 minutes in the beginning and don't just have her see that cop guy in the grocery store. Give me a little bit more. I feel like Jamie Lee Curtis is trying to like act her heart out to show her interest in the dude. Like, I feel like you're depending on Jamie Lee to give us all the subtext in one little scene. And I will tell you also in that same way, when you have Allyson's character have her first really forward romantic scene, it was the same thing. They were pushing too much of the narrative in the subtext, and it almost comes off a little bit wrong. It's like, I felt like both of them each had a scene that didn't come off real well in the first act, that if you would have given them a second scene, given a little bit more time, a little bit more exposition, and you've earned it. I was compelled the whole way through. Give them that time.
Yeah, so I think, we're talking about the same thing. A big problem is when you have a franchise that kind of does the same formula over and over again, and then you go and do a new film that's kind of a continuation from the last two, and you introduce all these new elements and new major characters and new ideas. The problem is you're trying to get through that quick while still sticking to like the main concept, which is what people came for, which is Michael Myers and Laurie. There were so many elements of this film that I did appreciate and like. I almost wish they would have taken what they did in this and introduced some of these things in the last two films. The first film was just about reintroducing us to Michael and Laurie and that whole situation. I almost feel like Halloween Kills should have started these plot lines from part 3, from Ends. Because again, with Laurie and Will Patton, who plays Officer Hawkins, I liked what was going on between them and I thought it was endearing and sweet, but it was just so, I don't want to say rushed, but it just felt underdeveloped. There was moments with them where I feel like...
Is it fair to say forced?
I guess you could say forced, but I feel like it was almost like I want to appreciate this moment, but you haven't given me enough yet to where I'm emotionally in that place. It's almost like if I took like a good romantic drama and I gave you just the peak moments and you're like, those are good moments, but I'm not feeling anything because we didn't build up to this. And also, I won't give away the ending, but people have joked in the past about how whether it's Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, why don't we just nuke them? Why don't we just do something to where we know they're dead? The whole point to it is they're supernatural and you can't necessarily kill them that way. That's kind of the point. And I feel like even though the way they deal with Michael in this, there's something that again was cool about it, but then there's also that part of like, okay, so you're basically reducing him down to just a regular man. And I think Laurie even says that line and like, well, no, because from the very beginning, he was more than a man. He was supernatural and he was darkness and he was evil. And they did something in this film where you felt like that evil was going to be transferred somewhere else. And it was set up and it was kind of going really cool. And then again, it's all these really cool pieces that in the end didn't come together. It's not a bad film, but it's not a great film, which I almost feel after watching it, it could have been.
They kind of abandoned something towards the end that I actually think was working.
Me too.
I'd have bought it, dude. If they went the direction that it seemed like they were going, it looked like the series would continue with this. And I felt like that might have been a way to revive the series for a new generation, dude. That would have been divisive as well, but I'd have bought it, dude.
I would have too. If you would have told me in advance what they were planning on doing, I probably would have been very apprehensive about it. But once I saw what they did, I was like, I'm kind of feeling this. And you know what? It kind of feels like we need to go this direction because otherwise it's literally just Jason Voorhees. He never dies. He keeps killing people and we don't get any type of evolution. But again, they set something up. They went with it. It was something that was going to be divisive no matter what, but I felt like they were doing a good job to where I was actually invested. And I'm like, you know what? I can go with this, man. I'm kind of feeling this. And then they abandoned it. And even the way they abandoned it, I actually love that particular scene or sequence where they abandoned it, where Laurie's involved. But the problem is, it doesn't matter if that moment is done well. You had us invest in the whole film in this idea, and then you drop it off. And now let's shift over to really what the film's about, And here's the other thing too, like you were saying, I don't like films to be overly long, but honestly, I would love to watch a 3-hour cut of this film if it exists, because I actually feel like that would probably be a better experience.
It was a little bit longer, or I think it was, because we talked about it beforehand, but dude, like,
it didn't feel it though.
It didn't feel like a long film. For the film that it is the end of what was supposed to be a trilogy. You can go really long. You can tie this up, especially since you decided to go a completely different direction. This does feel like something that I've almost come to expect. Whenever we run into these like trilogies, as far as I know, we knew when we got 2018 that we were getting a trilogy. Yet somehow it feels like the writers, they like wrote the first script and then gave 2 log lines.
Well,
and they were like, dude, you know what? We're not gonna think about this too much.
From what I understand, they didn't do that. They talked about doing 2. And they said, let's do 1 and see how it works out. And then, it obviously worked out very well financially. Right. And then they moved into the other ones. And I think that is part of the problem. I'm sure from the beginning they were thinking about the big picture, but I feel like what hurt it was from the beginning, they didn't have like a solid game plan. They didn't have things mapped out. Things can change, obviously, but they didn't have like an arc to the story that like, we want to try to stick to this. And so that probably hurt it. There's moments in this with Corey, it was kind of like that throwback to like the 80s, like the guy being bullied and picked on, and it worked for me. Like, I really invested myself in this guy. If they could have just found a way to all these like different plot lines and characters, if they could have found a way to, in the end, give us a satisfying ending, it would have helped out a lot. But I do have to say, no matter what, for you die-hard Halloween fans, there will be some of you that simply will not like this, and the concerns Wink and I have, those won't even matter, because it's hard for me to say this is the most different Halloween film I've ever seen, but in a way, I mean, obviously we had 3, you know, and we have some Halloween films that kind of go in some different directions, but there was reasons for that. This was somebody who is in a different position than those films from the past. And I feel like this, I kind of already knew going into it. I'd heard some things, but no details, but this is definitely in 2022, a completely crazy different direction to go with, like one of the most popular horror franchises in history. Like, they really took a risk. And again, I appreciate that, but when it was all said and done, it just wasn't great, you know?
You mentioned like the bullying thing. I dug that as a plot line, but the casting and who those bullies were was like cartoonish, and it was just kind of bad. That was probably one of my least favorite things, because the plot device was working for me. The casting was like, I don't know who in the
they
world
seemed
cast
too
them
young.
or wrote them. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, they were, number one, they were 18. They said they were seniors, so I guess they're like 18 years old. In the first scene, they were like marching band kids, and like, I don't know if they were just joking then, but like, marching band kids are the kids that get picked on. They are not the kids that do the picking on. And just who they cast, I mean, these kids just, not that there's anything wrong with them as actors, like they were acting fine, but like, it just didn't make sense. It felt very off.
A big part of it is, especially in a film that focuses on violence and brute force as being the thing that dictates how things transpire in that world, those characters would have needed to be a physical threat.
Correct. That's exactly
Corey. And I feel like in real life, if I looked at these group of people, I would be like,
that
Corey
guy could
can
beat their ass.
Kick all their asses, you know?
Yeah. One of the big things that we do need to address really quick, because I don't want to end this without talking about it. The gore was really good in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, that's one thing that we do have going for it. There's kills. There's really good kills.
So for me, again, I feel like I need to make Halloween and slasher films aware that, yeah, there's kills in this, but it is definitely a step down from, obviously from Kills, because that was a gore fest, but it's a step down from 2018. It didn't bother me, but if you're going into it wanting to see like really cool kills and a whole bunch, this film's focus really isn't on that. That's almost like kind of like a side thing. Like, it's there, but that's not the focus of the story, which isn't a bad thing, but
there are some creative, cool kills.
Yeah, definitely. So I will watch this again on Peacock, and it's kind of too soon to make like a hard determination, but right now I will give it a 6.5. I would say that you should definitely check it out. It absolutely is not a dull, boring film. It is very entertaining, but the things that transpire within this final Halloween film may leave a lot of fans disappointed.
And I'm gonna give it a 7.1. I would give it closer to a 6.5 rating. Like, if I were looking at just like the most basic plot elements, what actually bumps it up is the new kind of plot design. It worked for me. It worked really well. And man, if they just would have actually committed to it and wrote us into like that being the future of this franchise, dude, I might have been above an 8 on this one. It could have gone 8.5. Yeah. Like, but anyway, well, let us know what you thought of Halloween Ends in the comment section below. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and Skillz and I will see you later. Peace out, cheesers.
Peace.